All right. Awesome. So good evening here. I'm living here in Oshawa, Ontario. So if anybody's around the Durham region, always can come and say hi. But first and foremost, I just want to take this moment and say thank you to IIBA Toronto, especially to the gentleman over here, Marcus, for putting this all together, reaching out to me and giving me a chance to be with you guys and to be a voice of information when it comes to capital markets and obviously the topic at hand. I think that is the topic that we are about to discuss today is something that is very close to what I have been doing for my clients for a long time. And guys, this is all going to be recorded, so they're all there for you. And now that you've seen me, you've known me. If you want to add me on LinkedIn and whatnot, please go ahead and I would love to answer your questions. Obviously here too, and then anywhere possible. Just let me get an understanding here. Is I don't know if there's any way that, but if you guys type in if you guys are in the financial services or looking to go into the financial services or in capital markets, show me some indication because it'll give me a better understanding of the breadth of information that we're going to cover today. Okay. Yeah, of course. Yeah. All right. All right. No problem. You guys can get that over. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. Perfect. Yes. Yes. Okay. Yes. Yeah. 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 Email. Yes. That it falls under that same umbrella. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. Marcus, I'm good to go for that? Oh, perfect. So
Thanks.
let me know if you guys can see my screen. Okay, perfect.
Yep,
So
I can
then
see
we
it.
take that.
Perfect. All right, so let me turn there's a subtitle mode that's on. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so the topic here is a topic that falls under the umbrella of capital markets and financial services, but in all manner, just to get the language right and for us to get an understanding of what we are discussing here, it actually falls under capital markets. Financial services and other industries that we talk about, they are really all at the helm of capital markets as the parent umbrella. I want people to understand the language here also because it's quite important because trade surveillance, which is something that is the monitoring, the policing, and the regulation-based lens that you focus on usually happens when there is trading happening, which is usually in the capital market side. It can be for a buy side or a sell side client. When I say buy side, it's usually private equity firms and pension funds, and the sell side is usually banks and whatnot. But in all encompassing, it's everyone who takes place. So again, thanks again for you guys to spending your time today on this Tuesday evening. And myself, my name is Michael Muthurajah. I've been serving clients in the financial sector for the latter part of 14 to 15 years, I would say, give or take. My clients span from all the Canadian banks to the insurance firms, the pension funds, the asset managers, custodian banks. Yeah, you name it. I've pretty much covered everybody in the Canadian marketplace, right? And I've been blessed to have great mentors who have bestowed this knowledge upon me because as members here on the call would understand, there are things that we can learn via academia, but there are things that we learn and hone and become good at it while we work on the job. So trade surveillance was something that I thought there was not a lot of conversation going on because we have a lot of people talking about AML. We have a lot of people talking about trading as a whole, but trade surveillance is one of those things that brings the front, the middle, the back, the policymakers, the sales, the compliance people, everyone together. So this is one of those things where I felt like, okay, let me wear my business analyst hat, but we can also have a discussion around how the workflow happens, what's the first principles around it, how do we go about putting things into place, what's happened in the industry, what can we learn from it. And then, of course, towards the end, we'll look at some of the job descriptions that are out there, which if you guys ever wanted to look into those roles for the future, you get an understanding of, okay, this is what they're looking for. How should I retrofit myself? What's the gap that's in my toolkit that I need to get? So I just want you guys to get the most out of this whole time, and let's just get the ball rolling. All right. So the agenda here, I'm not going to walk through every one of these, but again, everyone on the call, if you guys would love to have this deck to you guys, definitely send me your emails and whatnot, and I will make sure that you guys get it, and I'll work with Marcus also if there's a manner everybody can. I just want you guys to have it because I think you can use it for reference, review, interview prep, just to get a good understanding, and even if you're on the job if there's it's good to have as a reference, and if you feel like, hey Michael, can you add some more, I'd love to do that for you guys too. So it'll be great for you guys, right? So yeah, this is what we'll be covering today, and towards the end we'll leave a good 10 minutes healthy Q&A, because there are some questions I might be able to give you off the top of my head, but sometimes I would love to give you a better response, so I like to gauge that in and give that back to you guys in all fairness, right? All right. Okay. So let's get into this. Um, for me, the way I need to, the way I coach and the way I get my candidates to understand is that let's define what trade surveillance is, right? Because the word surveil is basically about monitoring, right? That's really what that means. So trade surveillance is just like how you have a home security system that's, on all the time. The same manner goes with the trade surveillance too. So it's the continuous monitoring of trading activities, right? All of the firms that we are, engaging with in the financial sector are pretty much having trade surveillance enacted, because it is one of the best ways to maintain there is a fair and orderly market. The reason I say that is because, what makes capital markets function is the fact that we are all operating under the guidance of the same rules, and the starting lines are the same. So that's a matter of something that we have to keep in mind. So again, to define it, it's the continuous monitoring of trading activities. And also we want to capture, identify, and then report on those, unnormal or suspicious transaction that I call it, right? You can call this any manner, but fundamentally speaking, that's what we're doing. So if you see roles for trade surveillance consultant, trade surveillance business analysts, everything you would see around is about the data being captured in, the data being processed, and the data being brought out. All of them sort of coming together for you to make a intelligent approval on what's right, what's wrong, and what we should store and report. That's how it goes. And again, obviously, the benefits is to as a financial firm, your reputation is one of those things that is important. So for us to have a proper governance and proper structures around having great trade surveillance frameworks and target operating models, this is not just for us as BAs, I mean, everyone here, because all of us will go through those gradual ascension points of from a BA to a business architect or a product owner. And then, some of you might even end up going into sort of fractional roles in the future, right? So putting all of that into place, understanding why we are doing this, how do we add lifelong value for our clients, for our employers, and also just to make sure that we are able to have a continuous improvement model that is optimized and gives the industry a better sense of how to keep adapting, changing to the world as it is, right? And then obviously, the final one I think goes without saying. You wanna have your accounts and your investments and your mortgages and your any sort of investable assets that you have. You want to have it with the firm that practices by the rule of the law, right? So that's why the investors and the confidence of what they have based on how they govern themselves, how they work in the marketplace is quite important, right? So first principles is, just like any subject that we might want to start, for me, it's important to understand what are the definitions and the first principles. So first principles here is transparency. Again, I've broken it down in a manner where just even think of it if you are facing interviews, right? Because you wanna frame your responses in a manner where it addresses whoever's asking questions to also get your answers in the right manner. Transparency is obviously the optics of what we have. That's why it has to be clear. It has to be auditable, meaning it can be verified. And when that auditable comes in, that really accentuates based on traceability. So that's end to end from capture all the way till settlement. Those are the main sort of and ascension points when it comes to having transparency. And then we have comprehensiveness. That is anything and everything that can be captured with all reasonable efforts to capture should be captured. And then we'll discuss as to the regulatory bodies that put this into place. But that's the key here, right? We make our best efforts to make sure that we can capture it so that we are able to review it, requalify it, repurpose it, and also use it for our historical purposes and also for our governance structures and the policies that we work with. Accuracy, I mean, I think this is the most important thing. I think in 2025, I would say anything and everything that you see is possible by virtue of the technological rise that we've seen is only possible because you have some sort of confidence in the accuracy, the recency, the credibility, the authenticity of the data itself. So therefore, that itself is a crucial understanding to how to minimize false alerts, because there are rules that we set to make sure that there are obvious demarcation points, but at the same time, we want to make sure it doesn't throw up anything that closely resembles that, right? So it's one of those fine tuning where this is why you will see time and time again regulatory projects end up leading into AML, end up leading into trade surveillance, end up leading into further reporting, end up leading into further data enhancements because everything is tied to each other, right? So policy drives a lot of changes when it comes to the whole world of trade surveillance. And then finally, adaptability goes back to what I said. It's basically a feedback loop that we operate around, which gives us the understanding of how do we create these flexible frameworks that respond. Some of the responses are rapid because it's a mark to market based activity and it's tick by tick world, right? So, but as we all know, this is one of those things where achieving perfection is always a point that we are trying to always get to. It's one of those concepts that we have to bear in mind because forward looking and forward thinking is one of those database concepts that it's easy to talk about, but putting it in actual implementation is always going to be a challenge, right? Because creative ways of going around these kind of data-based responses and actions is something that is kind of difficult than we might want to accept it because trades happen at a very millisecond rate, especially if you're talking about high frequency trading. But then the actions that are captured by the time it comes to the pipeline and identified, and you're able to cross-pollinate and look at what's what, it's quite a challenge. So again, we're going to look into all of that and discuss, but just to give you guys an understanding, right? Okay, perfect. So what exactly does trade surveillance monitor, right? Because I've said all this and what is it, right? So I think some of these sort of terminology here, especially with the ladies and gentlemen here who've worked in the space of AML would be able to appreciate it. And that's why I made it very clear, right? Regardless of what we discuss, the frameworks, the target operating models, there are business servitude for what us as BAs, what we do is it's using the data in order to identify and capture these behaviors that are qualified by policy and by business as unacceptable behavior, right? So insider trading, suspicious patterns, collusion, market manipulation, front running, pump and dump schemes, excessive commissions. So I think you guys can all agree to this. And if you guys feel like there is any additionals that you have seen, definitely put that in because these are the ones that I've always believed have a sort of like a centrifugal force when it comes to giving more and more requirements, which is why the AML field has really flourished. AML hirings have gone through the roof, but also, with the recent, black spots that we've faced, even among the Canadian banks, it's made people to be very careful about, okay, are we doing the right thing? Are we covering this based on all angles? Because what I'm discussing here is trade surveillance as to a trading organization, but AML regulations and laws and whatnot, they don't necessarily just start there. You could start at the branch level too. So we got to keep that in mind, because that's another front, retail-based input parameter that comes in. I mean, either way, the way I look at it is that the second you put your money into, a bank, it's your money, but also on the other side, it's also the treasury's belongings, so that they could have the opportunity to create liquidity and market delta for us, for as the clients, consumers, and investors, right? So regulatory frameworks. This is one of those things that it's quite large. I mean, it's a whole other lecture that I could give on that, right? But I think for us, especially in the Canadian landscape, I would say we have IIROC, Investment Industry Regulatory Organization. And then obviously in the US, you would have heard about Dodd-Frank, especially after the 2008 crisis. And they also have FINRA and the SEC. And then European, on the European sector, on that angles, we have the MiFID and also the market abuse regulation. But also, just to chime on the others, there is the Singapore Monetary Authority, MAS. There is also the Beijing and then sort of like the Asia Pacific arms. If I'm not mistaken, there's also new regulations coming in from sort of like the UAE campus too. Again, these are some of those things that if you guys would love to know more, I'd be the first person to share that more when I sort of put some additional material to this. But for right now, just wanted to keep it very simple based on who I am speaking with here and who's listening to me. So that's why I've kept it to a reasonable minimum, because you guys know regulatory requirements are a whole other animal of its own. But now that we're talking about trade surveillance leans on regulation, because sometimes what happens is that we know what's right, but when something is added as a rule of law, it is something that everyone in the system can follow through, can have the same set of rules. So the reportings, the columns, the method of calculations, the manner of capture, how, when, and where to report it to, they all fall under the same umbrella. So you can imagine if you were, in the government or running some sort of the security arm, you'd be able to want to have the same kind of expected outcome coming from all of the parallel industries in the sector. So you can look at the data and then find out exactly how you would like to maintain reporting, how you would like to enhance reporting. And also it also gives a good sense of historical sense of what's happening, what can happen, and also allows you to look at it in a fine tooth comb where, okay, is this even illegal really? Like we've called it one thing before, but is this going to be an option where we'd have to realign and rethink our ethical and moral behavior of, because what sometimes happens is that technology moves at such a fast rate. I call it the curve, or the M value keeps on increasing, but operationally by firm it's not easy to keep up with it. So it's one of those things that's continuously improving. So AML refinement, surveillance refinement within the firm, and also within the doctrine of how the regulatory bodies put this into work should also have to be looked at in the right manner. So this is one of those things where we as BAs or product owners or business architects or even leaders within the organizations have to think of, okay, we have the technology, but do we have a control of the technology? How should we control it? How should that affect the roadmap of any project that you work on? And also just to also understand how this will affect growth. I think that's one of the things that we need to really think about, because the growth is something that is connected to that, right? Perfect. So from now on, I'll just make sure I'll be going deep into the ones that I truly believe that I should be going deep into. Other than that, I've tried to break everything in a visual enhancement so that you can also try and touch with it. And then again, obviously we have the last 10 minutes for Q&A, so we'll go through that. So as a BA, your surveillance implementation role would be obviously to define scope and the vision of it. This is where you have conversations with your stakeholders and understand what's really the expected outcome, right? So because if you're working on a project that is a new implementation, a migration, or a upgrade, or business as usual, or if it's a totally new regulatory reporting, they all have different aspects of it, right? Then translating requirements, again, for regulatory aspects, that is something where you take the policy, try to understand how that works with, and this is something that the BAs don't really work just by themselves. You will have counsel that you work with. I've worked with previous clients before where we've actually had a securities lawyer on site, or within the project, who used to be help us sign off on initiatives and whatnot, because that gives us a better understanding as to navigate the gray areas, because that's obviously what they are there for. Obviously, act as liaison, that goes without saying. That's what we do. We document it. I think nowadays the days of writing BRDs and SRSs are gone. So I think everything nowadays is Confluence and Jira, and we capture it via user stories. But if I'm not mistaken, there are some level of high level BRDs that's also captured and stored in Confluence, which you can link. But this is where we look at the target operating model. And when we say target operating model, it's just a fancier way of aligning for what we want to achieve, right? So it's technically like the future state of our project, right? So that's the requirements, right? We have our conversations, we find out what needs to be done, we know what needs to be done, and then we go back and present to our clients the future that we want to present to them. So that's the documentation process, right? And then lead testing, obviously all of us who are BAs are the ones who are pioneering and sort of leading the UAT helm of it. And also, you could call it UAT, business excellence testing, getting our clients the right side of training when it comes to new changes, what to look at. Again, that's also a whole other, so practice proficiency of its own. The more you work on these kind of initiatives, you understand that really all these projects are technically like they are data projects. However we want to look at it, we have to look at it as drawing insights from being able to capture the data, at its best manner with the most amount of accuracy that allows our clients to make better decisions, and to keep up to the standards of the industry, and also make sure that regulatory wise we're doing the right thing, right? And then finally, I call it manage enhancements, but this is basically the circular nature of it, right? Because when operations become business as usual, then we have minor enhancements, minor change requests based on certain things that our clients want to achieve. So this is one of those things that will keep on happening, which is why there's a lot of opportunities that come in when it comes to the whole world of trade surveillance, AML, regulatory reporting, right? Perfect. So again, the detailed steps is it's pretty much a repeat of it. But what you would look at it is that after testing and validation, here you have deployment and change management, which we saw before. But then the post-implementation support is what you call, technically we call the warranty period, right? There's, I've worked with clients where it's 30 days, 60 days, because I'm mostly I call it gun for hire, but I'm a contract consultant. So that's how that sort of falls in. But it gives you a good understanding of, okay, we've done everything. We worked through the whole process of understanding what's behind the curtains. But this is where sometimes you end up finding, oh, I didn't even know there were certain curtains out there that we have to look behind. It's what I call the unknown unknowns that we discover, right? And this is exactly the reason, I think the industry is where experience is valued a lot, because it's great. If there's no other way to, how do I say it? Like, bring this into a hands-on initiative or a hands-on project where you get your hands dirty of understanding how these are. It's one of those things. It's very hard to comprehend, because trade surveillance projects are projects that are actually mostly kind of standalone, but really a part of a enterprise-wide initiative, right? So that's something to keep in mind. I put this together, and I think you guys would really love it, because especially if you have interviews in the future that come up, and even in your daily conversations around trade surveillance and just capturing, right? This is a great way. So I think if anyone goes to interviews and you would like to openly discuss and have the conversation, this will give you a real light as to whoever is on the other side. First of all, it'll show passion, but also help them really look at, okay, what are all the small junctures, right? Because in my mind, when I wrote business requirements around trade surveillance, I went through this sort of a policy check, right? Every juncture of how the data is captured all the way until it's processed, we want to know what's the different phases, right? So if you look at some projects, they actually break these down into and and carry it into 3 to 4 phases. But as a BA, we always get asked, trade life cycle for your capital markets BA. If you go into one of those front office interviews, you'll get that question. Understanding the trade surveillance workflow, it falls under the same manner. As a matter of fact, I would say another level ahead would be that if you could actually think of a manner where you can also take this and put that into a swim lane, that means we are talking about people, process, technology, data. I think that's a phenomenal way of representing it. And if that is something that is also you would love to you guys would love to see, I'd be able to get that over. And as a matter of fact, I can even put that up on LinkedIn as a post, so you guys can download it and use it as sort of like a template, let us say, right? Again, what I'm trying to say here is that everything is here. Again, you guys are going to have copies of these also, so you don't have to worry about looking at it very deeply right now. Um, Awesome. So we're good on time. I'm just looking at the time too. Common challenges and solutions. Obviously, data. It's just a massive, massive amount of data, right? And that's why we have the 7-year rules and whatnot. But sometimes trading is a different animal because you'd probably have to have more data based on the policies, the kind of strategies that the firm uses, and because to be very honest with you, historical data is almost like currency. It's almost like liquid gold when it comes to the world of trading. So knowing that is huge. And then obviously, high false positive rates. We want to try and this is where intelligence combined with the cleanliness of the data, combined with understanding the sense of market habits, and also having a very good relationship with the compliance department and also the stakeholders matter, because this is where the common question will come in when you are on a trade surveillance project. If two different members have conflicting, or they want their requirements to be upheld than the other, how would you resolve that, right? The real answer is that everything has to be handled based on who doesn't want to get hit the worst, right? So when you twist the answer around in that manner, it's very clear as that everybody has to come to the table and have the right amount of decency and sort of humility to get the requirements done. Regulatory changes, I tell this to a lot of people because if you really pay attention and look at the history of regulations have always come in as a way to, oh, we have this happened before. How can we stop it? Or this is happening too many times. How can we stop it? It's whether we like it or not, it's going on right now, especially with the revolution of AI and machine learning and whatnot. It's really going on where people are sitting down and look at, okay, how do we have a framework for humanity to sort of operate in this new world of high fidelity data, and how can we have a good sense of understanding how it gets done, right? So that's something to keep in mind. And obviously, I think I think almost all of my clients have had legacy technology constraints. That's just old databases, fragmented systems, too many manual processes. We're going to look at one that is very quickly for Deutsche Bank for that. So we look into that one. Perfect. So looking at what we do in order to leverage what we have at this moment or in any given time, even if this was done 10 years ago, it's still a data-based, sort of implementation, right? So now, given what we have a lot more advanced analytics and machine learning, which is learning from the data that's already there. So if you have patterns that you have enabled as business requirements, then that allows us to work with our architects and our developers and try and streamline those so that they can be brought in as and used as functional rules, right? That's really what it is. Again, the storage part of it is key because, as I mentioned, it's something there, data storage, but also something that'll impact cost, right? So now we have to have this question. So profits, costs. So everything will come down to a discussion of, okay, what's the short-term gains, the mid-term gains, the long-term gains, and then what's also best for the reputation what's also best for the industry score for the financial institution that's at hand, right? So that's important to keep in mind. Automated workflow and alert management. This is basically, again, putting business rules together, being able to look at that workflow that I mentioned before and putting that into sound intelligence based on every data point. So that allows you to give a alert-based system. I also call it the four-eyed approach, where if something is brought into mind before it gets fully cleared, you want at least two people looking at it. That's at the authoritative sense, so that when that clears through, when if something happens and we have a question of audit, we have a way of going back to it and saying, okay, these two managers or these two directors approved it, and these are the protocols that they took. So again, from external audit and internal audit, we're trying to preserve best habits, right? That's really what it is. And obviously, integrated surveillance is basically connecting everything together, right? Having a surveillance system, even if it is a vendor system or even if it is some sort of technology that was developed in-house, when we say integration, this is really integration with data. That's really what it, on the crux of it, that's what it means, right? So this is something that I have here, and let's quickly look at it. This was a real case study for you guys to just take a look at. The bank and conversation is German headquartered bank, Deutsche Bank, Deutsche, that's what they call it. The problem was obviously that they had regulatory scrutiny that they had to deal with and compliance challenges that came from there. Their existing frameworks were very much fragmented, a lot of manual processes. This is why I think the whole world of manual is in my eyes, it's gone. It's going to be completely dwindling away just because the operational inefficiency is too high. And this has obviously led to everything under the hood that can happen from that. Missed alerts, high false positive rates, delayed detection. That's again, it's timely, right? It's a time pod that really loses our respect in the marketplace. Suspicious trading activities, and I mean, when we say why, the why and the what goes hand in hand, but regulatory requirements have been not met because of that reason. And the firm also had a lot of severe penalties that they were incurring. So if they didn't come back and show their shareholders, investors, and potential future investors, if they haven't gotten back their ducks in a row, this is going to be an issue. So again, that's why the motivation, right? And the how, this is where we come in, right? As BAs, as business architects, as business product owners, working with our clients, we will be recommending solutions for using the big data part of the environment that we live in, and also cloud computing to access and retrieve the data in a lot more efficient manner. And also it's a cost issue too, right? I mean, because physical data drives are costly. The ability to use the current artificial intelligence and machine learning, I know this is a buzzword now that's being used by, but the way I look at it, as someone who comes from a mathematics and statistics background, it's basically an understanding of taking the data, understanding the relevancy, understanding the scores, understanding the habits and patterns, then being able to have the learning methodologies around it, right? So it's again data-based resolutions, and the cleaner the data, the better for us. And the final one is integration. That's a given. That goes without saying. As you can see, it's nicely explained there. Trade executions, market prices, internal trader communications, and external news and events. These are all packed in together. That solution that they implemented by virtue of data sources, right? This one here, let's just look at what do you call it? The outcomes and the results. All the other ones are pretty much, you guys can take a look at it. But for outcomes and results, again, this is where all of the hard work pays off, right? And it's very quantifiable efforts that we can talk about. And again, I think you guys also, when you have your projects covered on LinkedIn, or even your projects covered on your resume, these are the highlight points that you bring in, and then this will drive your conversation around your excellence for that role, right? So reduce false positive alerts by 60%, that's huge. Improved accuracy and speed in identifying. That's again, like the first two things, the reason I've bolded it is because at this juncture, at this day and age, this is fundamentally normal. It should not be a conversation, right? But this is to go, and the larger the firm is, the changes are bigger, and when the changes are bigger, the efficiency also goes through the roof, right? And again, enhance regulatory compliance. this is something that's always going to be there. Regulations are always going to be pumped in, and we will have to put the rails together to exercise those regulations and monitor them and report on them in a timely manner. And then, of course, agility and responsiveness. Again, I think the third and fourth are some in some way or the other redundant, I would say, but they sort of like piggyback on the other one because of the changes come and they make a huge difference when it comes to the way we report it. Because one year you'll be working on that project that the regulation requested for 20 columns, and the next thing you know, it'll be something where you'll be looking at 50 columns, right? Lord knows I've had to come back and do the same thing again. So yeah, this is something that I think you guys would love it. Again, I've just put a easier visual coordination for you guys, but I would say look at that and then look at this. It'll give you a good sense of it, but these are the high level, right? Data consolidation, predictive analytics, real-time monitoring, training and governance, right? Again, it's basically keeping your people in the same caliber of performance as the systems that you put into place, so they're able to act as the best ambassadors and liaisons for what you put into place. I think that's why if you see a lot of changes happening in the hiring and certain roles being classified in a different manner, because that training and governance is also going through a huge revolutionary change because of AI and ML. It is how it is, right? Um, this is something that just wanted to show it to you guys because the more I look at it, it looks crazy, but it's a chronological order of all the fines that people have gotten. So you guys can definitely look at this and have a chuckle at it, but it's pretty crazy. And I think these are some of the big boys and the big players in the firm. I mean, when I say in the capital markets realm, but actually you could see these are pretty hefty fines by virtue of a failure of surveillance, right? And by virtue of that, AML too. It's all hand in hand, right? So best practices for BAs, just for us to keep our foot in the right place. Always understanding the regulations, understanding the domains, understanding the products, but also understanding workflow. Like really, what the way I look at it is that everything came down to knowing a good sense of end-to-end workflow, right? Because I think everything else will change, but the fundamental principles of how the workflow is set up is the reason we have that business, right? If you understand that, it's agnostic of the technology change or agnostic of the regulatory change, you'll be able to do well. That's what I believe, right? Because I don't have a 2 terabyte memory that's able to bring in all the details all the time. So sometimes, even though I know my stuff, it's just so much to keep in hand for an interview or for just to I think that's why we're going into a world where data is there. Do we have the interest, the keenness to prompt it and get it and retrieve it and add value, be efficient with the others? That's where it all comes into, right? And independent oversight, obviously, that's hand in hand. You do that with policy and governance. Iterative improvements, that's again optimization and continuous improvements are hand in hand when it comes to any BA's work, regardless of even if it's technology, process, or just at a high level, right? Stakeholder management, I think that goes without saying, right? It all starts there. Documentation, very very true, because you have functional requirements, non-functional requirements, regulatory requirements. If it's impacting on any user experience, you have screen requirements, you have reporting requirements, you have batch requirements. We can keep on going, right? That's one of those things where the hands-on projects is the best way to see the depth and the kind of just the massive nature of requirements that come in. That's why these projects have tons and tons of people working on it in years and years. The Canadian Bankers Association gets together many times and sort of employs different strategies, right? Data governance, you have a DGO, a data governance office. Those ones exactly where all of this gets piled up and puts into, they go and request for the budget and so that it can be done in a meaningful manner. Just to conclude, this discussion, I know we have 7:47, so another 10. If we have 20 minutes, I guess that's what Marcus also told us. But yeah, really, what it is that having robustness of trade surveillance, gives us the sense of safeguarding our integrity of the marketplace. That is the fairness that I explained from before, and then obviously the regulatory compliance, which is in our case, as capital market practitioners, as business analysts, that's a rule of law, that's the rules that we have to abide by, so that we are all functioning at the same starting point. And when we achieve our alphas, this is fair. That's what it is. Effective frameworks, obviously, people, process, and technology. That's really what the targeting operating model really is, right? You get to a place where the integration has happened in all three categories, not just technology, but for the people, the process too. And us, we are pretty much playing the roles of being architects, and in order to help that resilience of surveillance for the solutions itself. Um, I've called it recommended immediate actions, but really, think of this as if you were in a project, even if you are a full-time member, you would be looking at how do you assess these particulars internally, constantly looking at the gaps that could be there. What are the quick wins you can establish so that you could, make, efficiency factors right away. And obviously, long-term roadmaps are the real success, if you ask me, because firms who've always thought in decades have been very good at succeeding, just because we move at such a fast pace. And even that's also personal success too. I always tell my candidates, think in decades, so you'll be able to spearhead the future without any issues, because your mental capacity and your understanding that the slow wins are the ones that are truly giving you that reach would showcase, right? We'll get back to the question thing. I just want to point out one thing is that at the end of this slide, what I've done is I've taken like three job descriptions for business analysts that's come to me before, right? So I put this in here for you guys, so that when you guys take a look at it, and you will understand there are certain things that I would implore you that are very they're not common, but they're very particular. Because, like, for example, if you look at this screen right now, there is understanding FINRA, ATS, trace, oats. These are very, very specific to the world of capital markets, right? So if you guys want me to put a guide together for that, I would love to do that for you guys. But I just want you guys to look at these job requirements and understand what are they looking for, and how the basis and your fundamentals should be able to retrofit for that. So that'll help you really govern yourself, really plan yourself. And if you're trying to make a career trajectory towards this, this is what you need to focus on. Because I mean, honestly, if you don't have the experience, but I would always say skills pay the bills. Get the skills, get your hands-on experience, and you guys would be really, really surprised how far it could take you. And I think we live in an age where everybody's active on social. I would always prompt everyone, if you have certain things that you are working on and you would love for everybody to know that, posting that on LinkedIn is also great. You will get a lot of feedback. I personally believe that in this day and age, if you want to grow even if you're a full-time, even if you're a consultant, I mean, I think Marcus can chime to this at any time. We always put this because as we keep on growing, the more we are all working as a community, we can always help each other, and also understand how we can just continually improve and have a better outcome, right? Um, I think I've covered everything that I really wanted to cover, Marcus. So I don't. Let me know, Marcus, what's the flavor of how the Q&A works. We can take that accordingly. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. If anyone has any questions, you can type them in the chat, or you can open up your mic and just verbalize it. I was going to actually ask you the question about if someone wanted to get into it, how can they? And so thanks for that last slide about the job descriptions, things that people can go and look into. And I was going to add too, if you want to learn about these things, about any domain, including capital markets, start with generative AI like ChatGPT. Start asking questions. I know that Imal Bareli on his BA Blocks channel, he has one video specifically on how to research domains in ChatGPT. It's a great way to start instead of just going to do a Google search and not knowing where to look first.
Yeah.
So that would be it. But anyway, yeah, if you have questions, dump them into the chat, type them in, or by all means, open up your mic and throw away the question.
I mean, I think we can unshare and everybody can, we can look at it that way too. Let me see if I can.
Rosette's got a question. How does trade surveillance help flag abusive practices which could harm investors and undermine market integrity?
Okay, good question. How does trade? Yeah, I mean, again, so let's break this question down. This is a good question, right? So when we're looking at trade surveillance, the flagging component comes from exactly looking at the workflow that I mentioned, right? So those workflows are junctures of data patterns, right? Okay, we have AI and ML that we're throwing around, but at the end of the day, before, if you looked at a normal table, I mean, you would say, right? Okay, why does that price look way too high? Why does that person have many trades coming under the same stock again and again? Why couldn't they? No. So you have to hone yourself to understand what are the practices that are out there that should have an alert. So if you are, let's say, if there's a 10 traders and on, I'll just take up RBC, right? If you have 10 traders on the trade flow and you see habits of this nature coming in, and then what happens is that that's what allows them to, flag that trader and then put them under investigation, right? This is one of those things where abusive practices, how do I say this, at the end of the day, humans are some of the most smartest people in the world. And what you would realize is that this is why there's always, as much as I would love to say, we're looking forward, it's something, one of those things where you learn from the past for a reason. Mind you, I think we're going into a very different future as I speak. But what I have learned is that uh, there are a lot of really smart people out there who can mimic behaviors of what might allow you to think it's a false positive. So, Rosette, I hope I've answered that question in a meaningful manner. But what I'm also going to do is I'm going to bring down all these questions and I'm going to send a response here. I mean, to I think through the IIBA, but also I'm going to put that on LinkedIn too. So if anybody wants to come to my wall the next couple of days, I'll put that on because these are good questions because this is what gets asked even when you go to interviews too. So yeah. Next question.
We got one from Sanjay. In lieu of not having done a prior trade surveillance project, how to position ourselves with the understanding over the experience?
Okay, good question. So this would have been a tricky answer if it was. I mean, I would have had to say, I would probably say that this is one of those things where it's a very difficult thing, right? Now I'll go back to exactly what Marcus said. We are living in a world right now where the tools of technology allows us to ask it to create an environment where this is happening. So what I'm trying to say is that the first most important thing is that when you're talking about a project, what do you think really happens when you get a job? When you get a job as a BA, what happens? You go, you handshake, you get the job. But the first thing is you start dealing with stakeholders. That's where it all starts. The conversation starts there. So for you to have a project, imagine if I brought you into a world where I could replicate that for you. Maybe I can give you a document that tells you all the conversations and the responses that you're going to have. That'll be the closest way you can start when it comes to getting to a hands-on project and then delving into that. So what I would say is use the current AI tools out there. And if you could create something of that nature, what I would say is then you can showcase that on your LinkedIn under projects with a nice slide that shows exactly what you did, how you did it, and what you understood. And then again, this goes back to the job descriptions that I showed you. And when you're applying for those roles, make sure your project and the requirements are tying in so that they're able to bounce off each other, right? Because this is one of the things I'll tell you is that breaking into the capital market sector is very difficult. But if you have the skills, there is a lot of ways where you could profile your resume in a manner where your profile, your objective, and your summary of skills can completely give you a better chance at getting there. So it's one of those things I would say that would be the best way, Sanjay, that I would advise you to go at it. As a matter of fact, this is again my coaching. That's what I do. I mean, I've had 13 years of experience, so that's a different animal. I can go and create a custom scripts that will, I can even build a world of a universe that has 10 traders and 4 portfolio managers because I know how to give characteristics, right? But that being said, I think the most beautiful thing right now is that, and I would, this is not me trying to, but I would say this, right? If you guys, everyone are here on the call, going forward, I would heavily, heavily advise you if you find any means of investing your hard earned income into something that will allow you to learn about prompt engineering. I'm talking about true prompt engineering, truly understanding the nature of, because the data right now is collected in billions of storage. So it's really the skill of being able to prompt and get the responses that'll give you the right amount of I mean, I honestly feel like that we are going into a world where even BAs are going to be quantified by their prompt skills. Their prompt skills are really going to be a huge alpha to what they can bring to their clients. Sanjay, I hope that sort of gives you some sort of again, guys, honestly, if you guys don't want to ask any questions here, once you become friends with me on LinkedIn, I won't shut up. So trust me, you can go to town. So
I was going to ask, so if this looks to me like a very specific domain, so can a junior BA start in capital markets, or is this more for intermediate BAs and up?
good question. So the way I look at it is that I'll give you my story, right? So the reason I was able to get into this entire world is because I started off with the world of data. I think I was right around when I was in my first role that I had. I was working as a sales gentleman at the BMO Guardian Funds, and I've always fell in with love with the risk management side. So I went to UFT and I was taking risk related courses, and then it positioned me to construct my resume in a manner who is someone who likes risk because at the end of the day, all of these AML, trade surveillance, and all of these languages that we talk, the fundamentals of understanding the products, how you value risk, credit risk, market risk. You don't have to go crazy detail, but being able to show a passion and a level of institutional understanding. I mean, God knows I didn't have the tools that I had now before. That would have been a completely different animal. It's not even to start with. But yeah, that would have really helped you get a better sense of getting in. So to answer your question, Mark, I don't want to beat around the bush. What I'm trying to say is that we have to meet our clients halfway through if you're going to go from that junior. But I'm coaching students right now, candidates right now. They don't have this at all. But what happens is because they get the hands-on training where I create an environment where there's 10 traders and portfolio managers and compliance. Now the brain works in a whole different animal, right? So that now you're like, oh, it's like, I hate to say this, but what happens to Matrix when Neo gets plugged into suddenly he knows karate, almost kind of like that, right? But sorry. Uh, oh, Gabe, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Sorry, Pramit, I think you had a question, brother. Sorry. I can't
Oh,
hear.
you're muted, Pramit. For some
No,
reason, we
I
can't hear
don't
you.
think he's
Yeah,
muted.
you're not muted, but we can't hear you. Nope, still can't hear you.
Oh, sorry.
Don't know why. I'll give you a minute to fix the sound, or you can type it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, or even type that into. Correct.
Nope, still can't hear you. Yeah, weird.
Yeah, you can type it. Yeah, no worries, no
Yeah,
worries.
yeah,
And
we can
again,
type
yeah.
it. We can't hear you. I don't know what's weird.
Oh, thank
Oh,
you.
great presentation. Okay.
Thanks,
I was gonna
thanks,
say,
Rosetta. Yeah, honestly, guys,
you're on-
it's one
we,
of those things where, sorry, it's one of
uh,
those things where it can really be a whole day. I mean, quite honestly, in the future, I would love to have daily seminars, or a day seminar on these kind of things because I know what you guys are asking. How do you get in? This is the key, right? And but I would always advise you one thing that I've always done, right? Whenever you get a job, right, whatever that is, if you see something of that pattern, always try to tag it and mark it. Come back as you move on in the future. Look at all the requirements that are looking, right? Now that you have AI tools, put them in there and ask it to summarize the common ones. Focus on that. Focus on that again and again. That's what I tell my candidates because skills pay the bills, guys. I know it sounds like a joke, but I wish I can create shirts of it. But trust me, guys, I could take this to the grave. Just lean into that, guys. Lean into that, and you would see miracles just will fall off. And I know a lot of you guys are sometimes might be a little bit hesitant, but this is quite exactly not related to this. Be active on LinkedIn. Marcus is active. I'm active. Everybody's active. The reason I say that is that you'll be surprised the amount of openings that will come out because of the virtue of us being able to know you guys and recommend you guys to the right type of people too. Thank you for your presentation, much of which is adaptable to other domains. It's a disciplined approach, but yes, of course, yes, exactly, right. I mean, at the end of the day, us as business analysts have a set of mantras or skills or domain agnostic personalities that we've honed in ourselves that allows us to become great at what we do, right? And I think that's why you see a lot of business analysts going into business architecture, going into product ownership, because they've slogged, that's blood, sweat, and tears they've earned in that certain line of business that allows them to then think about a creative vision for the firm, right? Yeah. Uh,
I was going to say, I've also put Michael's LinkedIn profile. I'll post it
oh,
again.
thank
There it
you.
is.
Yes.
And I also put a link to Email Barielli from BA Blocks.
Yes.
He has a video on how to research domains on ChatGPT. So I put that up there as well. That you can use that to try and learn more about capital markets on ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no, guys. Okay, thanks a lot for such a long. Okay, I have specific
oh,
questions with respect. Yep, find it difficult to enter this. Yes, I know, I know. Capital market is not something that you can. That's why you don't see a lot of people talking about coaching and mentoring for capital markets, because it's one of those things like, oh, I can't enter it. Believe it or not, I wasn't forged from the capital markets cloth. As a matter of fact, when I got my first job on TD on the trade floor, I got it by virtue of accident. But what ended up me being, why I ended up discovering after I went into the industry is that, there's a lot of the things, if I had known, if I had put on my resume before, it would have got me interviews at least. So the funny thing is one of those things, yeah, where you have to look back and see, okay, what we could have done. But sometimes, you know, but I would say, it's one of those things where it truly is a skill, right? And you'd be surprised how many people, just the broad, normal question of, okay, can you walk me through a trade flow? That itself is something that a lot of people can't really answer. Not just because they don't know it, but nobody actually told them that they should sit down and put some premise and time around qualifying those responses, right? So then you don't end up learning it. Because, and honestly, I don't want people to memorize. I want you to understand by virtue of logical understanding, right? So that's why for me, it's just like, okay, what is a trade? Why do we have to understand first principles? And even the way you kind of frame your
I just got
responses.
something important now. Oh my God.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, yes, of course, of course.
go,
Yeah,
go
yeah,
ahead.
Pramit,
Sorry.
not a problem. Yeah,
No, sorry. Wait, that was I muted. Good luck. Yeah, it was their mic was open. Go ahead. Keep presenting. Yeah.
yeah.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
but
No,
we
Michael,
oh,
the floor is yours.
yeah. No, yeah, I would say, I'm really happy that you guys showed up, and then obviously the reason I've all of my sessions, whenever whatever I do in the future with IBA will be recorded. And I mean, I'm kind of behind on my YouTube pursuit. I promise you guys I'll put some real quality work into my YouTube channel, and because quite honestly, it's a dying effort to try and find manufactured time when you're working for your clients at the same time. So yeah, it's one of those things. Thank you for the presentation. I love the fact that you focused on finance when most BA meeting done. I'm a CPA working as a software consultant as BA role. Okay, yeah, great. Of course. I mean, at the end of the day, that's the thing, right? When I've worked with a lot of people who are from the accounting side, and this is what you have to really pay attention to. When you're an accountant, you understand of principles of accounting are sort of like the main sense of how that back office part of the world works. But if you really think about it, on the trade capturing side, you have mark to market concepts and reconciliation concept. They all stem from understanding accounting. Again, accounting is the oldest field in the world, guys. Capital markets wouldn't exist without accounting. So let's not forget that. Quite, to what people would say. Also, when you have that experience, you can actually build your profile in a manner where you can position yourself as a capital market business analyst who is an expert in accounting and reconciliation. You can frame yourself in that manner too. So this again, like that's one of the things, right? Like, and I don't want to keep on veering away from what I want to say is that that's why even on your LinkedIn headlines, those are quite important. You need to let the world know what you are pursuing and what you're doing and what your interests are, because when recruiters are searching for you, most of the time people don't get the right kind of inbound traffic from recruiters because they can't find you guys, and you guys are not forging a great profile. It's like it's your digital passport for wealth. That's how I put it, right? So having a beautiful LinkedIn profile that is full and thorough, where you're proud about it and you're nurturing it, you're harvesting it, you're watering it, it's important, right? So Alti, I hope I've given you some good sense of what you're doing is definitely going to achieve. And also, not to mention that when you're a CPA, you go into the world of software consulting and business analysis. A lot of the fintech projects that are happening nowadays are completely revolutionizing the way accounting is done, accounting is captured, how those kind of processes are done. Whole automation is going on. So yeah, I would definitely say. Yeah, I mean, the reason I say that is I think almost 9 months ago I was with Deloitte and I worked on two other projects. One is for they were completely trying to revamp their system into a full-on cloud-based caseware so that all their tax statements and whatnot can be done in a quick sense, right? So yeah, we definitely. But I would also say there's a lot of fintech firms that are breaking into this world where that's happening, and especially for someone, Alithia, in your case, keep on working and networking with the right crowd, because once you get to a certain level of experience, you'll be surprised. There'll be even private equity firms that'll help you pay you for your advice based on how to pre-acquisition advice, post-acquisition advice. I know I'm going all over the place, but I can't help myself when people ask me, because I'm having these conversations with a lot of people, and you guys have taken your time, and I just want to make sure that you guys get the most out of it. But yeah.
All right. Well,
Since
oh,
you
wait,
have been
Sanjay
independent for
uh,
13 years, can you give the pros of being independent? Yes, the pros of being independent for me quickly is that it's allowed me to work with so many different clients at such a short amount of time. But it's not for everyone. I've had to take my sacrifices. I would always tell people have a good level of savings when you want to go on that route. Have yourself a good lawyer and accountant who teaches you exactly how to use taxes and everything at the right time. So that's why you have to be careful. But personally for me, I think because I'm someone who really wanted to learn all of the crevices of the capital market structure, and that's only been possible for me because I did the contract route, but independent consulting route, right? That being said, in the future, if something really pans up where I'm at a different state of mind, I would take it. But honestly, guys, this is the way I look at it, right? My personal coaching advice for members of the community is that every 2 years, it's nothing wrong for you to assess yourself, see where you are, and go to another employee. It's nothing wrong. Some people might say I'm wrong to say that, but again, it's my personal opinion. So Sanjay, I would say, that's really how I would look at it, because honestly, when it comes to a full-time role, you are compensated by virtue of status and by virtue of whatever that is because you are really there to handle human capital or human emotions and manage people's risk. That's the real piece, right? Because at the end of the day, corporations are paying you for two reasons: either for them to make you profits, or for them to save you're helping them save money. That's where the real alpha comes in, right? So however you want to look at this, but when you're a great leader and if people love you and they want to follow you, that's why the guys at the big boys get paid what they get paid, right? So it's a construct of human behavior and how you manage it, right? I hope, Sanjay, I didn't. Sanjay, you can always speak to me. I can give you further advice too. I just remembered who that is. Just for a second, I was just like, I almost forgot I know the person. So yeah. Any other questions, guys? I'm really really happy so many of you guys joined. Hopefully, Marcus gives me a chance to come back again, and I would love to bring some more interesting topics and frame these things in a manner where you guys
good.
get in a good 1 hour.
Great. Yeah, I mean, I was just say I'm going to stop the recording now. It's
Oh, sorry,
8:11
sorry, sorry,
p.m.
sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. No worries. And we'll take if you have one more question, we'll take it. But I'm going to stop the recording now just because we're over time. Just a second.